everywhere, and my own person reflects on the Buddhas, to whom with my whole life I go for refuge. Offering light to the 10 directions, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, to whom we bow in gratitude. Teaching and living the way of awareness in the very midst of suffering and confusion. Shakyamuni Buddha, the enlightened one, to whom we bow in gratitude. I vow to avoid killing living things. I vow to avoid taking what is not given. I vow to avoid sensual misconduct. I vow to avoid false speech. I vow to avoid malicious speech. I vow to avoid harsh speech. I vow to avoid gossip. I vow to avoid covetousness. I vow to avoid ill will. I vow to avoid wrong view. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Good afternoon. I'm going to try to take up the subject about the honey ball and the perfect night to try to make this Dhamma talk a little clearer. I went away on Sunday, feeling that I hadn't done an adequate job of explaining. So I'm going to tackle it again, see if we can. So, as to the source through which perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome, hold to, this is the end to the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency of conceit, of the underlying tendency of desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons of quarrels, brawls, sprawl, disputes, recrimination, malicious words, and false speech. Here, these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. In these two suttas, this one has to do with, in my opinion, it has to do with cognition. And cognition and contact bring about perception and feeling. And perception involves memory. And there's nothing wrong with relying on memory in and of itself, but when we rely on memory to access things that we want to retrieve, experiences that we want to retrieve that we consider good, pleasant, exciting. You know, the reason why we go to the same bar or the same restaurant or go visit the same people is because we have a perception that this visit will be just as good, if not better, than the last visit. So we have a craving that we establish with memory. And that's the problem. It's not the memory. It's not the knowing that one restaurant is 5-star and one restaurant is 1-star. That's not the problem. The problem is the craving of wanting it to be just as good as it was the last time. So, in the sutta on a single excellent night, the Buddha recited a verse to the gathering before he went into his hut. And he said, "Let not a person revive the past or on the future build his hopes. For the past has been left behind and the future has not yet been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently arisen state. Let him know that and be sure of it, invincible and unshakable. So here again, we're talking about time. We're talking about how to allow mentality to assist us and not fall into the continuing pitfalls of suffering and pain because we attach craving to it. So we talked a little bit on Sunday about mindfulness. And what we discussed, I hope I made it clear, and I'm not sure, this is why I'm rephrasing it and bringing it out again, that a part of mindfulness, being in the present moment, being accepting, has to do with the practice of bare awareness. If what we're trying not to do is to create or manifest, to objectify. And so, in order not to do that, we must employ the practice of bare awareness. And that is, as an example, if we look up at the sky, we don't really see sky. Sky is a concept. We see a color. Today we see blue, but on another day we might see white or gray. But the point is, we don't see sky. Whenever we conceptualize, objectify, we manifest and create things that we then hold on to or run away from. Okay? So what we want to do is to eliminate that habit of manifestation and creating. We want to be about developing the ability and the skill to be present with the arising and the ceasing of each moment as it occurs. Not angling for a better moment, not trying to create the best moment possible, but just being able to live in the manifestation, the creation of the moment with whatever it brings. Because we know that whatever it brings and whenever it comes, it's going to go away just as quickly. So we stop this ebb and flow, this running back and forth, this to and fro thing, about wishing for whatever it is that we wish for. That we want to try to develop and create everything that'll be pleasant and wholesome for us forever. We don't want any problems. We run away from problems. So, bare awareness, bare attention involves the process of being able to be present, for instance, with the sense gate of sight or vision, to see color and form. So for all of you guys who walk through the woods on any given day because it's a peaceful place and so forth, and you walk through and you look over and you see light and color, but then you say, oh, that's a beautiful flower, and the next thing you want to pick it, to take it back home, to put it in a vase on your coffee table or on your dining room table. As opposed to being able to pass by it with the realization that that was color and that was form. That's it. That's how we saw it. That's why it came to our attention, because there was enough light there and there was enough presence there for us to see that there was something there. But we didn't try to make it anything. We didn't try to make it a flower or a tree or a dog or a frog. We just knew that there was something present. we have an experience about that every time we get in the car and drive. Because we don't see every telephone pole, every house we pass on the street. We don't see that. We don't bring that into our being. It just passes by, you know. We don't know what make a car or what even color of car usually that passes us on the other side of the street. So that's about being aware, but not getting involved with the object and not objectifying the object, whatever it might be. It's about letting it go, letting it come and letting it go. Without any need for being delighted in the experience of that passing. That's the craving. That's what causes us our problems. So, well, before I go any further, has that made it clear, or have I messed it up more? Made it clear for you? Okay, what about you, Hay? Okay. Sure. Hold on a second. Hold on. Whoop. Hold on.
It's clear, but in reverse, instead of it being really happy, it's something that makes you very angry. You know, instead of it being like you saw something was beautiful and everything's like really la la la, but over the opposite, because it just happened to me. And you're like so extremely angry. But I heard what you said on Sunday, but it was like I was so off balance by that it was so hard for me to just stay in the center. It was like almost as if there was a hurricane and the wind was blowing, and I didn't know how to get back to, you know, or I thought there was like no way back.
All right.
So what do you do? How do you get
well,
back? Well,
the first thing you do is you do just what you're doing. You talk about it, and you try to get to the bottom or the reason or the causation for you to be angry about this in the first place. I don't know the circumstances, and I don't need to know the circumstances, but the point is, usually when we get angry at a situation, everybody in that situation is not angry. So the first clear understanding we start to arrive at is the fact that the experience does not make us angry. We choose to get angry at the experience, but the experience doesn't make us angry. The anger comes from within us. The anger is created by mind and memory. That you see this and your perception says that's a dastardly thing, and I'm going to get angry about this. I'm the official protector. I don't know. You know, again, I don't know what the situation was. But usually, and very minimally and very simply, we get angry because we want the moment to be something other than the moment is. We have a preference. And this is the problem with objectification, because we don't always get what we prefer to get in our manifestation. And then we're upset with the whole process, because I wanted this, and I did not ever want to see whatever it was that happened, or whatever. I didn't want to hear whatever it was that was said. I wanted something pleasant and light and happy, you know, to happen or to be said. But it didn't happen that way, you see. But already your inner insistence was and is that it should have been the way I wanted it to be. You know, I deserved it, or they deserved it, or they, you know, whoever, whatever. As opposed to saying to yourself, this is a moment that'll pass. And it does. If we let it. The lingering emotion is because we're holding on to it. if we practice bare awareness and we practice allowing the moment to build, to come of its own, because that's what it does. Because if it were up to us, we would always have happy moments. But we don't have that control. We don't have that creative force to make every moment a happy moment. So we have our ups and our downs, and a lot of gray periods in between, where nothing's really going on. So it's to decide, again, why am I angry? What is really making me angry about this thing? And it's because, again, usually it's as simple as I want it to be something different than it is. And I'm angry because it's not. And that, of course, can dovetail on the fact that, I worked really hard at making this birthday a surprise, and you told somebody and you shouldn't have done that, or you told me you're going to get the cake and you didn't. All of these ridiculous things that we create for ourselves, we submit to, we volunteer for. And the easiest thing is to just let them go by. So, getting back then to what do you do about it? You first of all can make the decision that the way you are handling it isn't working for you. Unless being angry does. And that doesn't sound like it to me, that being angry is working for you, that you delight in being angry. So if that doesn't work for you, then the next question of wisdom is, why do you keep doing that? And you say, well, I keep doing it because they keep doing what they're doing, or they keep saying what they're saying. And again, the wisdom teaches us that they can't make me angry. They can do what they want to do. They can say what they want to say, but they can't make me angry. I make that choice, and I make that volition all on my own. And so when I realized that, whoa, wait a minute, you mean I don't have to get angry? I don't need to get angry? And you can work with this exercise with wisdom and intention, meaning that you really ask yourself, what did I achieve by getting angry? Did I change the moment? No, I didn't, because the moment's already gone. So I couldn't change it. It was what it was. It's gone now, but here I am in a new moment, and I'm just boiling over. I'm just fueling this new moment with anger that is old now. You see? And it's like, well, what is that about? Is that working for me? Is that achieving my aims for my day? And if the answer is no, then stop. Feel it. We talked about the process of the technology of this practice, of this wisdom path. And it tells us why things occur. It says, with contact as condition, feeling comes to be. With feeling as condition, clinging comes to be. So I begin to learn that if I don't like the feeling, if the feeling is irritating to me, unpleasant to me, and that's why I'm trying to get away from it, because it's an unpleasant feeling, then I can just make contact with something that will give me a pleasant feeling. And we talked about that. We said you can think of butterflies or grandchildren or puppies or vanilla ice cream, whatever it is that makes you smile. And that's all you have to do. You take your attention off of the thing that's causing within your own internal milieu an unpleasant feeling. And remember, it's not the world creating an unpleasant feeling. It's you creating an unpleasant feeling for whatever reason, because of memory, because of things that happened in the past. It's not important. The important thing is to understand and know the process. Process says, this has happened because you have an unpleasant feeling. Well, okay, I want a pleasant feeling. Well, I can't make that pleasant. That event has already gone. It has been done. It's over. I can't change that. But I can choose to bring in a feeling, an event, all on my own. Remember, mind is what creates our world, not the world creates our mind. Mind creates our world. So we're learning how to put our attention on something that within my internal physical, mental being creates a pleasant feeling. And it's that simple. I don't have to make you do anything. I don't have to make you say anything different, be any different person. Don't have to argue with you at all. You know, I can just walk down the street and whistle. Choose to generate something within my own being that's pleasant. And remember, I can't have a pleasant feeling and an unpleasant feeling at the same time. Now, I know hate thinks I can, but you can't.
I was trying to reach for something, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know how. I didn't know what it was, but now it's clear, or clearer.
Okay.
Just taking the next step.
Well, what most of us do is we forget the antidote. We get caught up in the emotion, and we forget that we have a way to get out of all of this that does not need to be a manipulation between myself and the others that are there with the presence of this event. That I don't have to change anyone else's mind. I don't have to make anyone else do anything. That is a part of our habitual tendency. We've always felt that you did this to me and I'm going to change you so that you won't do this to me anymore and I'll feel better. Boy, that's hard work. You know? So it's about practicing, and it's about taking that event and reviewing it and doing it a different way. You know, going along with the suggestions of the teaching. How do I work with this? How do I eliminate this tendency that I have to just let someone else's words or someone else's actions cause such a uncomfortable feeling within me? When I'm choosing that uncomfortable feeling, I'm choosing to energize it, to entertain it. And all I have to do is do it a little different. The reason that we keep forgetting is because this is the way we've always done it, and we've talked about that before too. You know, I forget because I want to go to default, which is to get angry. That's my default thing. But what I want you to do is to start remembering to ask yourself, do I have to do it this way? Do I have another option? And of course, you will be reminded that you do. Why? Because you asked the question. See, before we never asked the question. We just got into our anger thing and milked it until it was all gone. You know, and when it was all gone, we said, well, I showed them, right? But you didn't show them anything but how to be miserable. So you now have a question. Do I have to, just remember to ask the question, do I have to get angry at this? And some people, that's what they always do. That's their thing, to get angry. Because remember, a lot of us have lived in households where anger ruled the nest. You know, you didn't want to make dad angry. You didn't want to make mom angry, grandma, whoever. You didn't want to make them angry because you knew that when somebody was going to catch hell because that person who just knew how to use anger in a manipulative way, you didn't want to do that. Right? So we learn things well, and we stay in that training program for years. We stay home for 12 years, 15 years. And we're with the people that teach us a way that's dysfunctional. But we've seen it work. We've seen it in front of our eyes always work. We see that the person always gets their way, that everybody settles down, that everybody pays attention, that everybody shuts up, that everybody carries out the trash, whatever the case may be, makes up their bed, whatever, walks the dog. And so we learn that anger works. Now, why do so many people get depressed? Because anger doesn't work. It just worked because that person had more strength than everyone else in that tribe. And everyone was afraid of that person, so they kind of toed the line when that person started rearing up and showing signs of anger. But anger doesn't work. And when a person learns from a good teacher how to be angry, and then they feel that they've got this tool of control, that they can make other people bend to their will, and then they get out in the world and find out everybody's not going to bend to their will. And they become depressed. Because the tool that they've got for control doesn't work for them. They know it works, but not for them. Now they feel doubly cursed. Now I don't have anything. I don't have any control over the situation. So, don't do that. Okay. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So, coming out of this, the thing to hold on to is to remember that memory is a part of our vital mental function. Perceptional memory is the thing that actually gives us the qualitative factor of our experience. It tells us that, oh, this is great, this is good. You can relax with this. You can go along with this because I've seen this before, and this person is a friendly person. This person is a harmless person. And just as that is, they'll say something about, or memory will remind us that this event, this experience, this place, this person is unpleasant, and you should avoid them. Right? But this is because of perception and cognition and objectification. And we don't have to do any of that. We don't have to do any of that. We can walk by the moment without any impact at all from any place else and anybody else. That's all. If we don't want to get involved, if we don't want to be a part of their energy, their dynamic, we just walk by. That's all we have to do. We don't have to speak. We don't have to smile. We just walk by. Don't have to scowl. Okay. Yes.
This was so helpful to me very recently, all of the teachings. And just this was so useful to me. I was on a walk with the dogs yesterday in a trail in the woods near us, and I ran across a neighbor, my next door neighbor, and his dog, and that's a person I would prefer not to have run into. And it gave me, in your words, a chance to practice, because I couldn't just turn heel and walk away. And we walked back along together, and I was able to practice, and in many times. And afterward, my wife asked me how the walk was, and I told her that I had walked with this person. She said, "Well, what was that like?" And immediately the vow came to mind. I vow to avoid malicious speech, and so I just didn't say anything about it. Oh, I'm sorry. The one thing that has helped me in the anger path is a piece I read recently, which does so much to help coordinate and distill the many teachings. And that is a piece that told me to acknowledge that anger is there. Don't try to ignore it. It's there. I know it's there. But in my choice not to pick it up, I know it's there, and I can either turn left and feed that wolf, and keep the pathway to its lair clear of weeds. And each time I go, I keep it that way. Or I can just acknowledge that it's there and continue on in my path of the moment, breathing in the moment. And that path, hopefully, one day will be covered with weeds.
Okay. All right. Now, it's great that you are experiencing a turnaround in something that long ago you felt that you had no control over, that you had to do it this way. Okay. So first of all, it's great that transition is occurring, but you don't want to stop there. Remember, anger is all the way at the 12th step. When we talk about dependent origination, feeling is here. Feeling, not emotion, feeling. Anger is up here. So you allowed that feeling to get involved with your clinging. I'm going to show them, I'm going to make this right, I'm going to do this differently. Not differently in a wholesome way, but I'm just going to win this situation. I'm going to talk about this. The anger happens because you become a different person. You know, you stop being the loving dog guy that was just out there in the woods minding his own business, and you turned into this angry person. No, not this time. No, not this time. But in the past. Okay, in the past. You clung to anger. You know, anger, remember, anger is just an emotion of the moment, and it'll go like every other moment goes. But it is our clinging, our insistence that they deserve my ire, or there's something righteous about this anger that I'm not letting go of. I'm going to hold it for a while. I'm going to make them feel bad about what they did or what they said. So it requires we hold on to it. And of course, we've all heard of people who have held on to anger for weeks or months or years even. So it requires clinging, and it also requires transformation. And this is the thing, you know, that you want to be aware of, because it is the key to understanding karma and rebirth. So when I choose to hold on to anger, I become angry. I become an angry person. I wasn't that 5 minutes ago, you know, but because somebody said something, did something, or a situation developed that I wasn't really wanting to be involved in, I chose to be an angry person. I was reborn. And that person who was peaceful and just whistling and enjoying their moment no longer exists. That person is dead. And now there's this angry person that has been reborn, which is you, until you decide to not be angry anymore. Then that angry person dies and some other personality manifests itself as you. So there are occasions when we are born and die 10 times a day. That the person that we were in the morning is not the person we were at noon, is not the person we were at 3, is not the person we were at 5. When we understand that, when we finally go, oh, I see, and you mean I'm doing it to myself? Yes, you are. Then that means I can stop doing it to myself. Yes, it does. And so the next thing in the line is, when you choose to get angry again, remember Don. And remember how Don chose not to get angry and not to give malicious feedback to anybody else to fuel the fire. This is a part of what we forget sometimes. He's like, well, I didn't get angry, but I'm going to spread the news about that guy. Well, what is that but anger? You know, maliciousness, wounding someone else, hurting someone else. Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm going to tell them what I did, and I'm going to tell them how big of a nuisance they were. I'm going to let the neighborhood know. Yeah. So all of that is a part of the process. And again, to remember to be kind to yourself. You know, yeah, you forgot again. But that path is well worn. And what you're doing now is you're working with neuroplasticity so that you can build a different path, a different default. And as Don said, by using the wolves as an example, the one you go to is the path you create. The other one, the leaves and the weeds grow up around it, and pretty soon you forget that it's even there. Right now it's just clear because that's what you've always used. So, there you go. Keep asking yourself for these experiences because it'll make you more skillful. If you only get them every once in a while, you forget. By the next one that comes along, what am I supposed to do? What question am I supposed to ask? You forget. So every day, ask for an experience. You'll get it right real quick. You know, you'll get tired of just beating yourself up. So, there we go. We have a picture about the practice in the West because we have, fortunately for all of us, we have loving meditation centers, you know. But back in the day, they just had woods and trees and tigers and snakes. And they only came to see the Buddha once the range retreats was established. And that was only established because there were other sects who complained to the householders that the Sakyan sect didn't care about life because they were out walking while it was raining, and you know, sprouts and earthworms and other things were coming up out the ground, and they were showing an irreverence to spring and life and renewal. So it was amended so that during the rains, during the rainy season in India, that they got all of the Theravadins off the roads too, so that they would demonstrate a respect for life. But I'm saying this to say that gathering was not the ideal. It was seclusion that was the ideal. So even when they lived together, when they lived in the same park, they would have a bunch of bushes here, and there would be one monk behind this bunch of bushes, and another monk on the other side behind that bunch of bushes. And they never really socialized with each other, except on maybe one day a week when they would sit together and talk Dharma. But the other periods of time, it was more about them sitting still by themselves, being secluded by themselves, where they weren't interrupted by, the motion of anyone else, the movement of anyone else, the coughing of anyone else. They were all by themselves. And that's why in jhana it says that the first jhana is born of seclusion. This is how we get into that first level of absorption. Just being alone. Just not necessarily having anybody around us. Just being alone. Now the second jhana is born of concentration. So that means that now I'm good enough to be able to, as soon as I sit down and will it, I'm able to go into the first jhana, which means I've developed my skill in concentration, which means it opens up the doorway for the second jhana. So, I love the community thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that start out with that, but also be inspired to go on walks and then find bushes and trees where you're by yourself. Carry a pillow with you and just have something to sit on so that you can be inspired by nature and be inspired by good friends around you, but not right jammed right next to you like you and Don are. It's a good thing, but it's not a good thing. Okay. Let's take 10 minutes to do some mindful meditating. And what I want you to focus on is bare awareness.